It took me so long to track down Fourways Farm because I could not remember the name of this that I simply have to share this rediscovery just in case anybody else is in the same position as me. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a full episode of this online, which is, fair enough. It's a very old program, not the most popular, but I did find quite a few clips. And as soon as I started watching it, it just all came flooding back to me, and the memories are so beautiful. Fourways Farm is a British children's TV show that was produced between 1993 and 1996, which is pretty much the time when I would have been watching it. Although apparently it was repeated on Channel 4 up until 2007, which seems like a bit of a stretch. I'm going to take that as fact from Wikipedia, but certainly it's not something that I had seen in maybe 23, 24 years, but I could remember it, but I couldn't remember the name. And after a lot of digging, I did finally find it. And from what I've rewatched, I remembered it quite well. And I have to say, it's absolutely beautiful. So I can't do an in depth review of an episode. I can't really analyze it from an educational perspective too heavily, which is what I like to do when I look back at nostalgic shows from my childhood, but I can gush about how fondly I remember it. And I can give a little bit of positive feedback, but nothing, as I said, I haven't seen a full episode, so nothing too in depth. For information, the show was created by Chris Ellis, directed by Tom Stanier. All of the characters were voiced by Martin Jarvis, and we have this great mix of farmyard animals. The intro actually goes through the animals. There's a pig who's too fat, apparently, and there's a horse and the three mischievous rats who provide some antagonism throughout the episodes. And various other farmyard animals. The dog I particularly like. The dog was one of the ones that I remembered most. We have this stop motion animation, and the characters are a little bit rough around the edges. The movements aren't too smooth. It's not. I get the impression it's not the biggest budget production because you can do animation much more smoothly than this, certainly even at the time. But it's not so jarring or disjointed that it's uncomfortable. And certainly at the time, and for the target audience, I think it's good fun and the animals look great and they're believable enough as the characters are meant to be portraying. And the dog, the black and white dog, just definitely stood out to me, and as one of the things that I remembered most about this, and that's how I was able to identify the show once I eventually did find it. And we have Davenport, the dog, is his name, and it's definitely the character that stood out to me. In each episode, there is an opportunity for learning. They learn about something that they find on the farm, which of course teaches the young viewer the kind of preschool, early primary school age. There's a lot of information there to be had, and the three rats often create a problem that the animals have to then try and overcome. This is both in terms of what I remember and what I've been able to piece together, and I think that works very well as a structure. Each episode, I think, is about 10 minutes, which is obviously not a tremendous amount of time, but enough to give a pretty well developed narrative that's got enough information that can educate a child without overburdening them with too much for them to kind of engage with. According to Wikipedia, there were only ever 25 episodes, which probably means that I've seen each episode many times, but no specific episode jumps to mind. There isn't any specific episode that comes to my mind immediately. It was definitely Davenport the dog who I remembered the most. So I can't do any more kind of analysis or reviewing than that without seeing a full episode, but certainly I remember the overall TV show very well. Davenport the dog I remember very well, and the theme is beautiful. Music's by Jim Parker. It's beautiful. I hope if anybody else has been trying to find this but you couldn't remember the name of it, I hope I've been able to rekindle some nostalgia for you. And if you don't necessarily remember it, go and check it out. Maybe it will trigger some memory. But I'm glad that I finally found it because Fourways Farm was definitely a personal favourite, and I can see why.